Welcome to This Week on the Grappling Rewind podcast. This week's show, we're going to recap Fight to Win 155, which was headlined by Pattt Fontes versus Grace Gundrum. We're going to talk a little about the UFC Justin Gaethje versus Khabib Nurmagomedov because we watched it, and it included grappling. We typically don't cover MMA on the show, but we're going to do it a little bit today. We're going to talk a little bit about the preview for Subversiv 4, talk a little bit about the Edgard Invitational 2, and Submission Hunter Pro 60. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Emil.
How you doing, Emil?
I'm doing well, dude. Are you gonna survive?
Dude, I'm very, very sleepy. It was a big week. And then we watched the fights on Saturday, and then Sunday, I got invited to be a commentator for the Edgard Invitational 2 up at Method MMA, and that was awesome. Did that with Eric Naples. Had a fun evening. You can watch that entire event on YouTube. It was a lot of fun. I love doing commentary, so it was great to get another opportunity to do that. A lot of fun matches. We'll touch about that a little bit later in the show, kind of talk a little bit more about that. But, yeah, it was great. I'm just extremely tired because we talked for about, I think probably the event was about 5 hours, and I probably talked consistently for probably 8 or 9 hours that day.
Yeah,
and I'm tired now.
It's exhausting.
It was a very, very fun day though. A lot of good matches. So let's kick it off with a little bit of news. There's one piece of news this week, and I laughed when it came out because I went, I did not expect that.
Yep.
Chris Cyborg Justino. What is her actual name?
That's a good question. I only know her as Chris Cyborg.
Chris Cyborg. I think it's like Cyborg Justino. Her first name's not Cyborg. It's Chris Cyborg, the female Cyborg that fights in MMA. It's awesome that I love it for 145 pounds.
Venancio.
Is it really?
That's her last name, yeah.
No shit. Is that her maiden last name or is that her husband's her ex-husband's last name?
Her married name was Christine Santos.
Yeah, she married the other Cyborg Santos, and then divorced, and now Chris Cyborg got her black belt from Cobrina. Dude, I'm tired. This is going to be an interesting show this week, which I laughed at because I thought Chris Cyborg had been a black belt for like 10 years at this point.
I had no idea that she wasn't. I would have.
About 2 years, probably about a year and a half ago, I went through like almost all of Chris Cyborg's old fights, like in one weekend, and like watched through her super early fights. And I always thought she was like, it was kind of surprising. I was like, man, her grappling's like. It was weird to see, like, at her level that, she's doing these things as a grappler. And I realized that probably now that she was a white belt in the fights that I was watching versus, like, I thought she was a black belt, like, 10 years ago. It's like, oh, this makes a lot more sense in context for the level of grappling I was seeing in her early fights in Brazil. So, congratulations to her. It's really cool to see her get that from Cobrina because she's a really dope fighter, and I honestly really, really enjoy watching her fight. Yeah. Any other news this week, Emil?
No, man.
Khabib retires. We talked at length about this, and
it's kind of jiu-jitsu news. He finished Gaethje with triangle.
A white belt retires. Come on, it's like pour one out for something that happens once a week. If you're a white belt listening to the show, keep training, bro. one day you too could retire undefeated world champion.
That's right,
and a Naga champion.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of news. It's been a pretty quiet week. Everyone's sort of just been quiet this week because we wanted the fight to happen. Everyone's like, don't announce anything. Don't do anything crazy. Let's let this fight happen, and then we'll take it from here. So I assume this next week's going to be absolutely crazy for news. But
Gaethje was hilarious, by the way.
Dude, Gaethje's always hilarious. I love Justin Gaethje because he's such a good dude. Like, it came out, at least he flew his parents to Abu Dhabi and, like, was talking about, like, the sacrifices they made. And basically, like, man, I love that lots of MMA fighters are pieces of shit. Justin Gaethje doesn't seem like a piece of shit.
He does. I mean, and to the point where, like, in Khabib's retirement speech, he like talked at length about what a good guy Gaethje is. Like,
Khabib was.
Yeah.
It was just like, yo, Gaethje, you just got triangled. You're like super happy to be here and like having a good time. And like, hey, he's a great champion. It's like, bro, I'm looking for like the animosity and the hate because that's what I love in sports.
The funniest thing that he
you're
said,
just a great guy.
Was when they were interviewing the post-fight interview of Gaethje. He was like, yeah, it's good that. It's almost good that I got triangled because it doesn't do any lasting damage or whatever. Meanwhile,
and you, me, and Zach all looked at each other and went,
yeah, like maybe for a regular triangle where the ref, ends
the ref doesn't let you go to Valhalla.
Yeah, that was a late stoppage, but
look, honestly, I'm happy in all title fights. If there's ever a question like, did he tap? Did he not? You give it a couple more seconds. I would much rather see, and every fighter I've ever talked to is like, look, if you're not sure, I'd much rather go out than like not have tapped and
He
you
was
stopped
out.
the fight. Oh, he definitely was out.
He was out.
We all knew he was out, but the ref was like, got to make sure, and I appreciate that for making sure. Gaethje was happy with it. He's fine. No
The other
harm,
thing,
no
too, is,
foul.
Like, that triangle doesn't undo all of the strikes that he got hit with
That
before.
triangle doesn't undo Justin the Highlight Gaethje being the most exciting fighter forever and using his ungodly chin to entertain us for the better part of a decade plus.
Yep.
So pouring out for Justin Gaethje. I appreciate his sacrifices that he's made for my entertainment. That's all I got for news.
Yep.
All right, let's move on. So on to a recap of Fight to Win 155, headlined by Grace Gundrum defeating Pattt Fontes to become the Fight to Win Strawweight No-Gi champion. Does it via dead orchard submission on the night for the black belts because Grace just got promoted to black belt.
God damn, man.
Crazy.
So Grace,
This is a great.
yeah,
like,
no, it's a great match. Grace pulls guard and gets the high guard immediately.
goes like a double bagger position where you have both legs like crossed over the back of the shoulders and you use both hands to kind of grab them. It's not technically a double bagger, I think, in the traditional 10th Planet like system, but it's a very similar kind
At
of
one
position.
point, the commentators said that she had a double bagger.
Oh,
so,
sweet.
So yeah, good call, man.
Yeah, by the way, shout out to the commentators, Jerry Glabuto. Always one of the best on the mic. It's great to hear him talk. I like him going to, being the East Coast commentator because just top-notch commentary guy.
Yep. It was, by the way, before I continue, really awesome Philly card. It was just great to see a bunch of people that are maybe a little bit more regional, but like still really exciting fighters.
A lot of guys that we know a little better. Like I kind of have a soft spot for all of the cards, the Fight to Win cards that come close to us because they're guys that we see in the local scene and I'm just a little more familiar with, and they're like home products to me. Whereas
Right.
like I see them compete locally, they go out internationally, they go nationally. It's just like I have a little more personal buy into the card, so I do really appreciate coming into Philly and showcase. I think they're going to be in Philly up until the end of November.
Yeah.
They've announced being in Philly for a long period of time, so that's cool.
Yeah, Grace looked so good here. So she gets to the high guard, double bagger position, and she does a really, really nice transition basically to the dead orchard.
If you're not familiar with the dead orchard it's basically instead of having a triangle, like a no-arm triangle, it's a both-arm triangle. So you go to the triangle position, but you have the opponent's head and both arms trapped in the guard, and it's a really common position that you see from like a teepee. Like someone will go and not lock up a triangle, but lock up like the high guard with the leg over the shoulder, and then lock into the triangle, but you get both arms from the opponent get stuck in.
Right. It's very challenging because people who are really good with the position, who are either good at teepees or a lot of the 10th Planet folks are really good at collapsing your shoulders together. Yeah. And so your arms are sort of collapsed in and almost like starting to touch each other.
For me, it's almost more of
hard to defend.
It's more of a shoulder thing because what it does on the top end of the shoulders is it pushes your shoulders in, and so you can't get the leverage to actually push your elbows and flare out because the person that's throwing the teepee actually slides down a little bit onto your shoulders themselves, and so you can't open up to free your elbows. So
exactly.
I love this from the teepee because I used to play a ton of high guard, and the dead orchard here is so difficult to get out of.
You can't hide your arm anywhere. It's exactly for the reason that you said.
You have
which
joystick arm locks there.
Your elbows are already pushed forward, and the commentators did a really good job at calling this. But basically,
like
saying
a minute before it happened.
Yeah, they were like, okay, Grace is going to want to eventually get one arm crossed over the other. That's the absolutely the best way to finish. And so Grace is really patient, and actually Patty's like slamming a bunch to try to get out of this position.
Which is great. Which is why I love Fight to Win, because in other rule sets, there's not a whole lot of defense you can do aside from just pulling out. So the slam gives you an actual defense that you can do, because if someone is less confident in that position or is uncomfortable with the slam or is really getting hit hard, a lot of times they will open up that position and you can actually free out of it. So I really appreciate that the Fight to Win rule set is tailor-made to defending something like this, so it made it even more impressive to me that Grace was able to stay on it.
Yeah, not just stay on it, but then also address it. So Grace hooks the leg. So again, not only is this like adding a more dynamic jiu-jitsu when you allow slams, it also improves jiu-jitsu, right? Because then Grace is actually doing the technical sound thing.
I can't just sit there. I go, okay, she got to go. Okay, I'm getting slammed. I got to stop getting slammed. I can either open it up or I can loop under their leg, and then Pattt Fontes has to address that.
So Grace actually hooks over the leg.
It was an overhook?
Yeah, like so. Kind of like a...
Oh, okay. Yep, I had that wrong in my head.
Almost like a whizzer sort of way to think about it. But so she hooks it. and is patient, and then gets the arms crossed over. And by that point, it's all over, right? Like when you get your arms crossed in a dead orchard, it's impossible to defend
unless you can rip out of the position. There really isn't a space, because you're gonna have such a hard time going forward to get out of it.
Yeah.
Unless the person on the bottom makes a mistake there, it's so difficult. Grace locks it over. And then what I love about the dead orchard finish like this is you can finish the dead orchard without the arms crossed. Just do it over the thigh like a standard kind of straight TP'd arm bar. But with a dead orchard, it adds insult injury, because you actually lock the person's other arm underneath the arm that's being armbarred, and you use their other arm as a fulcrum over top of the elbow. And I really like this because I'm kind of weird inside. You get to look directly at them as you're finishing them. There's no turning the angle. You get to watch them, and they get to watch you submit them. And everyone's having a great time.
Yep, I've tapped to this, and it sucks. It's exactly the way you describe it.
I love this position.
So
yeah, Grace Gundrum gets the tap submission of the night for the black belts, and now she is the strawweight no-gi champion. Which is funny that Grace is the strawweight champion, because I think Grace walks at 109 or atom weight.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see maybe if we're gonna see her also go for an atomweight title at black belt.
Maybe. I mean, she looked great.
Yeah. Because Fight to Win doesn't use the IBJJF rules, or doesn't use the IBJJF weigh-ins, which would be Rooster for this weight class. Not Rooster. Light feather. Sorry, Fontes is typically a light feather. I think she was light feather at hands. So I'm curious to see if we'll see Grace cut a couple of pounds if she's walking at 109. And fight for an atomweight title. I'm not really certain who she would face. I was thinking about this weekend. I'm like, I would love to see the Bastos fight, like Maisa Bastos, but I think Bastos is I think she's mostly a gi player. I don't know why I think that.
No, she's definitely done no gi.
Okay.
She's definitely.
I'd love to see the fight. We already saw Grace Gundrum take on Rokako Yuasa, which was kind of the previous Roosterweight queen at Quintet. I would love to see that now with Grace with some more experience on a Fight to Win stage or something like that. I think both of those are really outstanding matchups to make, and I would be, with an impressive performance like this over Fontes, who's one of the top-weight strawweights.
So actually at EBI Women's Strawweight, Maisa Bastos subbed Rokako Yuasa by rear naked choke in regulation.
There we go.
There you go.
So I would love to see that matchup. Because it would be fun, especially with Grace being a black belt now. All of those black belt matchups are super available to her, and people, I think, people should take those matches. So, great performance. Happy to see it. Any kind of closing thoughts? All right, next matchup, we have Devonte Jhonson defeating Vinicius Chateau via decision.
This is a little bit of a pensive match, slow and technical. Trator actually jumps guard here.
I always forget, for some reason in my head, I always have Trator as much more of a wrestle heavy guy, but Trator is typically going to be a guard player, and we see him jump guard and pull guard in the majority of his gi matches. He is definitely, reminds me almost like a Victor Hugo with a really dynamic guard, but Trator's, if he's not going to tie up with you in the feet and push you around, he's going to maintain and close you in the guard and really slow down dynamic passes in the guard.
He jumped guard, so he was elevated, and Devonte slammed. And I actually think that the slam is the deciding factor of the match. So eventually, Devonte's passing here gets a really nice over-under, and he gets an awesome collar grip on the side where he's got the leg up, and is able to crush through for a near pass. It forces Trator to turtle, and eventually they get back up on their feet. They're kind of battling from this position for a while, a little bit. The match time expires.
Both guys are really kind of A-game fighters where they're not really going to deviate a ton from what they're looking to do. Devonte will much more, we've seen him in the past, if you start to give him different looks, he will kind of play with the different looks that you're kind of giving him. But again, he plays to that, but he's really, if you were going to play one game, he's not really going to deviate from that game either. He's going to play kind of the game with you.
It was Subversiv the last time that we saw Devonte? When did he go completely
It was
ham?
Subversiv, yeah. I think we just fucked up a bunch of people, and he was on the Unity team.
And I remember he had a really, his passing was what blew me away.
I forget. It kills me. I can't remember what match that was, but it was one of the most impressive performances we've seen from Jhonson.
Yeah. And it was the over/under passing that now that I think about it,
very dynamic and
his
quick.
over/under passing is damn, it's something to behold.
Which is kind of when I was surprised that he wasn't able to get that as going with Trator.
I mean, he got the near pass. that would have been an ad.
Sorry, I was more impressed that Chateau was able to kind of like slow that down as much as he was. Like really drops his hips into a lot of things. Like again, in contrast to the Subversiv match with how active and how quick, Jhonson was able to get around the legs. And like
it was slower than...
Chateau can really slow... And I think I don't appreciate that as much as I should from Chateau. Like, that he can really slow guys down a ton.
In the gi, it might be easier to slow.
Definitely. There's more friction. There's more fabric. You have more grips available to you. But, Devonte Jhonson takes this via decision. Again, a really close match that was on the slower side. But, I do like seeing both these guys compete. And so... it was good.
Yeah.
Next one,
we got Jake Watson defeating Matheus Luna via decision.
It's a fun-ass match.
God damn, Watson can bolo. So what I really like about Watson sits, pulls guard, and he goes for the goofy side, De La Riva Berimbolo, right? So like
goofy side.
Well, I mean, I'm sensitive to that now, or at least like I'm.
Well, it's funny you call it the goofy side because when you say goofy, I immediately think of snowboarding and skateboarding.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's why I use it.
I mean, typically in fighting, you use orthodox or southpaw.
Well, whatever, dude.
Like, goes to the goofy side, like the southpaw stance, Emil.
Well, okay. Well, when you're doing De La Riva, actually, now that I think about it, maybe I'm doing the goofy side. So, which leg is hooking behind them?
My cross side leg.
What do you mean, left or right, man? Come on.
I can't do left and right. You know that, right?
No.
I can't do left and right.
Can you point to your leg?
Like, I'm probably going to throw the De La Riva hook in with this leg, which is the left leg.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw the cross-side leg with my right leg, with my dominant leg, but I'm a southpaw. I'm a right.
So your De La Riva hook is with your left leg.
Right, but I'm a right-handed southpaw. So my right leg is going to be the long leg, but it is my stronger leg because I'm a southpaw, but I'm a lead hand, right-footed southpaw.
I have no idea what the fuck you just said. Regardless, I think a lot of people throw the De La Riva hook with their left leg, right? So a lot of people will. He shot for the right leg basically.
Okay.
Each time, and I think there's probably a lot of people who are like can defend it, but like that split second, like
all of a sudden it's getting thrown in the weird leg. You're like,
what? Yeah, and Watson launches into these Berimbolos. So I think
Watson's also super long.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've talked about it before on the show. Like, he uses the lapels really well. We saw that again on display here. Watch this match and watch his match with I always want to call him Rolando Jr. From Atos, if you want to see like more Watson's lapel work here. But he's super long, so when he throws those hooks in for the De La Riva, he is so deep into your thigh with the hook that you have so much foot and leg to strip off.
Yep.
He also gets like very, very close to you when he's doing it. He's like underneath you and really can elevate you and get you off balance very well in conjunction with the lapel work that he does. I wouldn't want Jake Watson underneath me.
Yeah, no. So he's also doing it aggressively, rolling 5 times through on his first one, getting the sweep. And Luna eventually gets a close, or rather, Watson gets to close guard. Luna slams, and Watson answers with another goofy side bolo to get a really dangerous belt grip, but they kind of like go towards the edge of the mat. And I got to say, Watson, you said it, very lapel-y. He even gets very comfortable in a lapel guard, using it to sweep and knock.
This kind of every time I watch Watson nowadays, Watson and Keenan, I gotta learn more lapel guards, so I don't just go, he gets into a lapel guard like an idiot. I'm like, he gets into like the reverse De La Worm, or like so I can put a name to the guard.
Right.
Like it's a lasso sweep. Like that's about as far as I go, and it's like, okay, time to get my knowledge up. Time to be a better analyst and learn this stuff so I can speak about it.
So, but when he uses the lapel guard, so it's a sort of like a De La Riva with with the lapel through, and he does another. This is funny, like it's one of those things where you see it once and then you're like, oh, that's really unusual, and you start to see it everywhere. Another one-handed toe hold here. We saw one last week.
Dude, I saw that this weekend too at Edgard.
Yeah,
like we're starting to see a lot of people throw and they throw it on the They throw it on the outside leg, on the top leg. Mm-hmm. They don't do it on the control. They can turn the body better, and then after the person makes the turn, then you can lock up or go to wherever you want to do off the transition.
Yep.
And I like the one-handed totally because it doesn't. You don't have to use both hands and commit them. You can throw it. You can force the defense.
Exactly.
And then you
force
can
the
use
defense.
your other hand to do whatever else you want to do with the hand.
All you're doing is generating enough pressure to make it uncomfortable and forcing the person to rotate in the direction that you want, and it's beautiful. And Watson uses this, goes into an Aoki lock off of it, and then ends.
We're starting to see a ton more now. Like that low, like an Aoki lock, if you don't know, look it up because we're starting to see a lot more. We saw a couple of them this weekend as well. It's like a low Estima lock, but like on the top side of the foot. It's just like it's a lock I don't fully understand.
Yep.
It's neato.
I thought the same thing when like he slapped it on real quick, and one of the commentators was like, "Oh, an Aoki lock," and I was like, "Okay, that's a new thing." But
we've seen it a couple times on Fight to Win. It's not something that. It's not something we used to see, we frequently used to see, and in 2020, we have seen way more of them than any other year. Like, we used to see a ton of Estima locks, now we're seeing a ton of Aoki locks because it's on the opposite side of the foot after you defend it. So,
and then,
really interesting.
Watson ends the match on a straight ankle lock, so, I think these leg attacks at the end really kind of sealed the match for him.
We say that more and more in Fight to Win is like that, guys at the end of the match, you need to kind of put a stamp on or really score points, and so because the refs are keeping score in their head, the slams count and the submission attempts count, so you need to get 1 or 2 more points to really sway a match in your direction. You're best off to go for the ankle locks at the end of the match, and that's I think one of the things that leads to Watson definitely securing that decision. It was a straight decision, not a split.
Yep.
So really good match. Watch it. A lot of fun. Good work from Watson.
Next up, Angel Lopez defeats Jared Weiner via decision. Jared's another example of like a guy that we see a lot. I think he's actually based in Philly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
we've done a seminar with him.
Awesome. Yep, he did a seminar. I still use stuff from that seminar.
You took the craziest notes at that seminar I've ever seen, and then you gave them to me, and I was like, oh, Emil, this is probably like 4+ years ago.
Yeah, it was like 4 years ago, I think, yeah.
And I was like, oh, Emil's a really smart dude. And that was the first time. We had just met probably within like 6 months of that seminar.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a good competitive match up until basically Angel goes to slam, and Jared like does the correct thing. He's the first person that I can think of in a long time that avoids the slam. He releases, but he is not able to square up when he lands, so he has to turtle, and Angel takes advantage of this and takes the back and starts setting up a cross collar choke, and I think it's like a minute or two that he's on there.
Yeah, it's a good amount of time that he's kind of like working that choke, and then if those are the pieces of the match that they got to score, like you're going for actively a sub attempt, like he's going to get it pretty clearly on like on back control scores very highly in submission only events, and that's that's what we see here.
Yep, exactly. So it's just an example of sort of out of the frying pan into the fire type situation. But next up, we have Tom McCann defeating Brian Sheehan via wrist lock.
I fucking love it. I love wrist lock people. I love to see it.
God, you're a terrible person.
I love it, man.
Andrew Cockle defeats Nicholas Wiley via heel hook. Andrew Cockle, again, awesome local guy based out of Pennsylvania. Nick is really into pressure wrestling. He's the guy in a singlet. Yeah,
he's in a singlet.
Yeah, he's like, making a statement. He's like, we're going to wrestle. We're going to wrestle.
But Cockle has Cockle. We did it wrong for 3 years. Let's not continue the trend. Mm-hmm. Also wrestled and has like good stand.
He's got really good wrestling. Yeah. I mean, Pennsylvania is a fucking wrestling
like
state.
Unfair.
Yeah.
What's up, Penn State?
Yeah. So Andrew's playing guard, and which I'm not accustomed to seeing. Like he truly wrestles a lot. So Nick tries to get past Andrew's seated guard, jumps over, and Andrew tracks with him, comes up on a single leg.
The tracking here was really, really nice. It was. We see guys track well in jiu-jitsu a lot. It's cool when you see it like, oh, that was actually a really well-timed track on the guy like rolling over.
Yep. And Andrew comes up on the single and drives Nick all the way to the edge of the mat. And very clearly, Andrew's like holding onto this leg like he's going to do something to it. And Nick realizes this and yanks that leg out. And Andrew's like, okay, cool, and just jumps on the other leg and slaps on a really quick outside heel hook. For the
I wish we had a side angle of the heel hook because I can't exactly tell like perfectly how I finished it, but the switching of the leg was money. It was real quick and just gets the tap very, very quickly.
Yep. Next up, we have Pier Paolo Chiappa defeating Garrett Lavaggi via decision.
And that was fight of the night for the black belts.
This is a great match. Lavaggi has watch Lavaggi's wrestling in this. It's fucking awesome. He hits a beautiful ankle pick off of the bat, and then he follows up with a double leg, and Chiappa answers with a guillotine attempt. And actually, this kind of this is a recurring theme throughout the match. And at one point, they come up off of a scramble, and Lavaggi hits a body lock slam that was pretty damn close to a suplex with some serious airtime.
So moves like that on Fight to Win, very, very frequently you're going to get Fight Night. If you ever can almost suplex someone or do do something that you can clip for Instagram, it's that'll go far.
Yeah. Lavaggi starts answering with his own really good wrestling, does an arm drag into a single, Chiappa hits an arm drag, and at one point, Lavaggi does his own arm drag, but gets snapped down into an arm and guillotine, and Chiappa is able to really lean into it and wrap his legs around and force Lavaggi to very clearly deal with it. It was on for a little bit, and I think that's just it's such a clear submission attempt.
Yeah,
that I think
you're in a sustained front choke like that.
Yeah,
it weighs very heavily.
Yep.
In the eyes of the judges, especially for the scoring for Fight to Win.
Yep. So that seals it.
That's Fight Night for the black belts.
Jonathan Webb defeats Brad Pearson via decision. John Nelson defeats David Kidesh via inside heel hook. Stephen Plyler defeats Joe Apadisano via decision.
On the brown belt matches,
Sebastian Rodriguez defeats Gregory Raffield via rear naked choke. Kevin Dantzler defeats Yoshiatsu Tanaka via decision. And
and that was Fight of the Night for the brown belts. See, that's what we're dealing with right now, Emil.
Jules Knighton defeats Luke Chiomos via triangle.
That was submission of the night for the brown belts.
Daniel Sala defeats Chris Dorsey via decision.
On to the purple belt matches.
Cameron Mellett defeats Sam McHale via decision.
And Merlot retains the Fight to Win Bantamweight Championship in Nogi.
Eric Williams defeats Joe Quinn via knee bar. Tyler Rivera defeats Anthony Rodriguez via decision.
Fight of the night for the purple belts.
Stephanie Tyler defeats Rebecca Hayes via decision. Chris Dunlap defeats Zach Davies via decision. Calvin Tacey defeats John Mabry via guillotine.
And that was submission of the night for the purple belts.
Miguel Garcia defeats Stephen Davis via triangle. Thomas Trapea defeats Nicholas Lawson via decision. Jacob Lehman defeats Ryan Stark via choke. Gaby Etzel defeats Sandra Cheng via armbar. Craig Feldman defeats Kevin McGran via armbar. Miguel Corridor defeats Patrick Simpson via decision. John Lyons defeats Nicholas Toscano via decision. Eric Orange defeats Jillian Pearson by decision.
On to the blue belt matches.
One more. Dennis Gunnick defeats Robert Fitzgerald via toe hold.
On to the blue belt matches.
Oluwatomiwa Kosoko defeats Shaquille Vaughn via decision. Christian Bobe defeats Xander Taffy via decision. James Van Alstall defeats Alexander Margolate via heel hook.
And that was submission of the night for the blue belts.
Tyler Pendergrass defeats Lewis Dowd via decision. Marquis McCrimmon defeats Eric Comag via decision. Anthony Williams defeats Phil Abbott via split decision.
That was Fight of the night for the blue belts.
And Dylan Cordell defeats Michael Gillen via split decision.
And that does it for our recap of Fight to Win 155. I want to talk a little bit about Submission Hunter Pro. So these guys had an event now streaming on Fight Pass. They've been around for, again, a lot of events. We've seen them for years, but they've always been kind of difficult for us to cover. They had two matches that were really interesting. They had, let me find it here. Anna Holy, Jordan Holy's wife, defeated Andrea Morris via advantage in overtime. Really close match with both ladies. Again, it's cool that these are on Fight Pass now because we've not been able to cover Submission Hunter Pro at all in the past. So I think this is the first event that is actually on Fight Pass. And then we have Danielle Kelly defeating Roxanne Monteferi via toe hold. Really cool transition. Locks up into like an outside saddle position, leans back and just basically leans her hands over and turns the hold in. It's cool to see Kelly get a win. I know I assume we're going to see much more from Kelly. She's black belt. I feel like we're going to see a lot more of her on the super fight scene, especially with this win over like a big name. This is also an all women's card.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because we see those. I think we've seen a couple of those. I think Submission on the Shore did one, but it's extremely rare. So go back, watch this because it's the first event on Fight Pass and it's an all women's card, and that's a rarity. So support women's jiu-jitsu. Let's see what else we have for the weekend. Oh yeah, so Edgard too. I want to talk a little bit about that. Did commentary. You can watch the whole event on YouTube. A lot of fun. They ran a number of different divisions. They ran a 45-pound 5-man round-robin bracket. They ran a 170 5-man round-robin bracket. They ran 2 4-team, 3-person quintet teams. And they also ran a couple of, I think, 2 or 3 super fights as well. So it was a very, very mixed bag of events and rules. They also used a really interesting rule set. So basically, everything was basically 1 less point. So takedown was 1 point. Guard pass was 2 points. Sweep was
1 point.
1 point. Mount and back was 3 points. So it made for like lower scoring matches. So nobody's ever really down, but everyone on that card was hunting for submissions. I don't want to just recap the entirety of the event because I actually don't have results sitting here in front of me, and I just talked about it all Sunday, all yesterday for like 5 hours. But it was a lot of fun. Go watch that if you want. We see a lot of guys on the card from the East Coast. I know Frank Rosenthal won in his finals match via submission. There were a ton of really great subs on the card. Sean Ashley was on the card. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a great time. It is the reason why I'm extremely tired today. So that's all I want to talk about. That go watch it. It was a very good time. What else we got this show? We got so weirdly enough, we previewed it last week. So by the time you're hearing this, if you get the show immediately when it comes out at midnight, Quintet will be happening in 2 hours. So at the time of this recording, Quintet Fight Night 5 has not happened, but we previewed it last week. If you're curious about it, you can listen to last week's show. So we're going to recap that event on this next week's show because at the time of this recording, it has not happened. But what is happening next week is Subversiv 4. So we talked a ton about Subversiv 3. It was, I think, 16 teams?
Yeah, I think that's right.
So Subversiv is basically it's a team battle format, but it's not. What would you call Subversiv?
It's more like team super fight matchups.
Is it something like a dual meet, isn't it? Like wrestling has a dual meet.
Oh yeah, I don't know what the name of that format is, but yeah, it would probably be like a wrestling format where you have
each person at a weight class.
Right. Each team has competitors who are at different weight classes,
right? And
they go against another team and match up with the people in their weight class,
right? So it's like, again, for this Subversiv event, Subversiv usually releases their brackets like a day or two before the event, and their competitors list like a day before that. So we don't get this until like basically when you're getting it. So we can't actually preview it right now. But I know a couple of people have let me know that they are in the teams. I just don't want to blow their spot up. But usually what it is last event, it was 16 3-person teams. You had a heavyweight, or you had a welterweight, and you had a lightweight. No, not a welterweight. Was it? I don't know. You had a big guy, you had a smaller guy, and then you also had a woman, which we really appreciate. So we see a combination of women's super fight matches and...
Yeah, and I mean the talent on Subversiv 3, to give you an idea, I'm just looking at it again. We have... Team Checkmat had Sam Nagai and Gabriel Almeida and Nathalie Hibero on the same team. That's just like
read the
monster.
Unity team.
Yeah,
and the GB team is the team that won. That had Trovo on it. That had was it Riesling on that one?
Hold on. We have Hunter Colvin. We have John Combs, Seth Daniels, Brittany Elkin on their team. We have Andrew Cockle was on this.
It's generally a crazy event. And again, I'm kind
Felipe
of annoyed.
Andrew was in it with Jenna Bishop and Sam Snow. Like
we had Levi Jones Leary. We had Devonte Jhonson.
Yep.
We had Tex Johnson.
Yep.
Like it was a crazy event.
Tex Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, Levi Jones. Leary. Yep, yeah. Oh my God.
So if Subversiv 4 is anything like Subversiv 3, and it could be, it's one to tune in for. I would highly recommend you watch the event live. We watch a lot of stuff on tape. Subversiv, there's the team for any sort of team battle format. Always try to watch it live.
Yeah.
Quintet is happening at 3 a.m., so it doesn't count. But like, don't watch the piece matches. Sit down, put it on, watch from the start of the matches to the end of the matches, because it is like a building format. It's sort of what EBI used to do, where you kind of like follow the bracket and you follow it and it's entertaining. But Subversiv is even more because you watch each team go in line, where it's like, okay, here's their lightweight guy. Here's their heavyweight guy. Okay, here's their women's match. Okay, that team's eliminated. Move on to the next one. It was a ton of fun to watch last time. I'm looking for big things for the next one. But again, I don't have any names or any brackets, so we can't preview it, which I'm annoyed a little bit because I like to preview these things, and I like to make picks.
Yeah,
making picks is fun. So those are for like previews. Let's talk about let's do what we don't do on the show and talk about MMA, because the show's running a little short, and we all watched it, and I want to talk about some of the grappling sequences from Khabib versus Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, that match ended on a triangle. So
second fucking round.
Yeah, it was. It looked like Khabib carved through Gaethje's guard, if you want to even call it that.
Dude, the passing. So Khabib does a couple things from a technical perspective that I love, and there's some really great breakdowns and analysis, and better analysts than I am, that talk about and use video footage of Khabib, and exactly what the favorite thing that Khabib does that I like the most is he triangles his legs as he is passing you, and he walks up your body while you're sitting on the cage, and you can't get your hips away because he has his legs triangled and under your calves and under your knees.
Yeah, he's like extending your legs
and he's
out.
Lifting your hips up as he's doing it, so you can't actually pull out because he's lifting your knees and hips, but he has them trapped well enough, and the cage is behind you, so you can't actually make the scoot you need to free your knees. Like, everyone's like, oh, I love the Dagestani handcuff, which is the thing he does when he grabs behind your own arm, behind your hand behind your back, and pull you down on your post hand. That's cool. The leg triangle that he does to walk you up on the fence is what allows him to pass every time.
Yeah.
It must be maddening. If you ever had somebody do this to you on a cage, if you're ever doing like cage work, it's maddening because there's no way out of it. There's no good way. There's no way to break his grip on his feet.
Yep.
There's no way to get your feet out. He's like at your knee line, so you can't even flare your knees to go into like a butterfly guard. You can't lean back for a butterfly guard because you're on the fence. It sucks. It's such a great technique to implement and see used, and it's so funny that we almost never see it in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's bizarre that we really don't. And I
see it occasionally, and I'll usually yell at my TV when I see it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he's doing the thing.
I think it must be because in jiu-jitsu we have open space.
There's no cage.
You can always scoot back, and people will scoot back very violently. Yeah. The only time I can think of,
we definitely see it, but it's definitely a rarity. We see it from people that are finishing takedowns.
The only time I can think of anyone teaching it that I've seen is that we were actually just talking about for us, the hobby. He has that really great video on how to deal with people who are super Gumby and can like invert.
I've seen that video.
Yeah,
Yep.
So he basically does a version of this where he's like, okay, like you want to actually collapse their legs together, and so he shows exactly that, like what Khabib does, which is like squash the legs together and triangle around them.
It's a really great position. I think a lot of jiu-jitsu guys also don't let themselves get to that position ever because you know how bad it is. As soon as anyone has locked around your legs at all, it's so difficult to pull out of that.
Yep.
But I would guess that we're going to kind of see it return because it's such a dominating style. I think if you can grab behind, you can pull out the hip as the top player because it's such a great passing sequence and it puts you really right into mount if you do it correctly.
The other thing is, I think the other reason why we don't see it in jiu-jitsu is like if you can squash someone's legs down together like that, you're going to do like a lot of people will go for the leg weave pass basically.
Yeah.
And so
which I think Khabib used in this fight. He like kind of got to a half leg weave and just like turned around and passed the guard.
Maybe,
and then immediately went to mount and then triangle Justin Gaethje, and I was like, ooh, that's a really tight. I really wanted just to win. I'm a huge Justin Gaethje fan.
I like Gaethje too.
I really like, and I'm not a huge Khabib fan. I respect how dominating he is, and it's beautiful to watch. I just like the guys I like. And he got triangle, and I went, That's a real. I don't know how he's gonna get out of that triangle. That's a really tight triangle. Because we've seen Khabib work off his back in like triangle guys before, early career. So I knew he could do it, but
yeah, and like I read a headline, and who knows, this might be hearsay, but like someone was talking about how Khabib was talking about how he heard Justin say that he wasn't gonna tap, and so Khabib was like, I don't want to hurt him in front of his parents, so he didn't go for the armbar. He went for the triangle instead.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
To have the wherewithal to like
decide. Yeah.
Dude, we've done that I've done it in like lower belt matches where it was like, I'm gonna choke this guy instead. But it's like I've never done that like versus a guy that was similarly as good as me. Or like at a world like Justin was the interim champion going into this match.
Yeah. Had just put on a clinic against
Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
Like punched his face off.
Yeah.
And then you choose like, I'm going to triangle him instead of armbar him because I don't want to hurt him in front of his parents because he's told me he's not going to tap. You're like, to have the wherewithal in the fight to do that, to make the decision, and then get the tap and then retire so I don't have to see you fight contenders and actually clear out your division.
Maine's a little salty.
Super angry about that. Super angry. No one MMA goes undefeated. That's the rule, man. Like, no one. Now he's left as champion. The conservation of hype isn't there for the next generation. It annoys me. It kind of messes with combat sports. The old champion is supposed to age, get beaten, fall down, and retire. That's how it works, man. I had to see it with Aldo. I had to see it with Anderson, who has his last fight coming up. Like, it makes you sad. I had to see it with Fedor, Frank. Like, makes you sad, but that's the way of combat sports. You got to be a little sad at the end, and then you watch the new contenders come up and rise above, and then they go their career and they far as well.
I don't know what to tell you.
That has been my my TED talk on MMA. Again, I'm getting back into MMA because I forgot how much I focused on jiu-jitsu for a couple of years.
Well, I mean, like I was thinking about it. Like we were in some real fucking dark ages of just like activity. It sucked. It sucked for like years. You had so many divisions that were tied up.
Thanks, Connor.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Thanks, Connor.
Connor.
That was him. It's basically like.
Well, Connor, Bisping.
Yep. Oh my God, I forgot the Bisping era.
And it's not exactly Whitaker's fault, but like.
Whitaker was pretty active.
He's
pretty active. You look by the numbers. I had this argument with Simon before.
It's not that activity. It's like he was forced to fight Yoel twice. And Yoel missed once, so one of them was like not a defense.
It was Yoel couldn't win the title, but Whitaker could retain. Like that's a weird caveat.
Yeah. So it's
but middleweight was still putting on great fights. I got to watch Yoel Romero bus driver uppercut Rockhold in the face.
Oh my God, that was.
I like Rockhold as a fighter, and I think he's a really fun fighter to watch. And so I was like, ooh man, that's like a career ending.
But I mean, like I'm saying, like shit was tied up for a long time.
Yeah, and like John's doing this, and DC's out, and John pops for coke or weed or hookers or whatever he popped for the third time.
Yeah,
and then DC was the champion. Then Rumble retired, and it was just like, I want to see these fights. Just don't fuck your life up and get your shit together so I can watch you fight.
Yeah, so I feel like we have really active, champs now.
Dude, the UFC is dope right now.
Yeah,
like every division for the first time. Actually, now 55 is gone, is like in a position to have contenders, to have fights, to have the guys that probably should be fighting for those titles, fight for them. I'm down. I'm back in. They bring me back in, Emil.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I'm happy to see it. I got nothing else for the week. I'm excited for Subversiv. I'm excited for the rest of the stuff we got going on next week. What do you got going on this week? Anything fun?
Not a whole lot. It's a chill week, man.
Nice. You gonna train at all? You gonna come to the house and train, Emil?
Yeah,
we got the mats.
I'd like to drill. My back is doing really well, so I need to. There's a lot I'm rusty on. I was rusty before the quarantine, and now
I got the mats. It's like a giant drive to get to my house, but totally come over whenever. My back got cortisone injections last week.
How's your back doing?
It's not doing good. It made it worse. The cortisone injections actually made it worse, which I'm kind of upset about. Man. It is what it is. Like. I'm not going to stop, so, like, you just deal with it. I'll probably get surgery in the next year, but, like, it is what it is. I'm pretty much having a good time other than the back hurting all the time. Like, you just lived, we're, 2+ years in? Actually, November will be 2 solid years of the back being broken and herniated. Like, you just learn to live with it at this point.
Damn, dude.
It is what it is. Like, I'm not that worried about it. I'm having a good time. So, yeah, that's all I got. Any closing thoughts? Like, it was a short one.
Yeah.
All right. So as always, in the show, I'm your host, Maine, I'm the co-host.
Emil.
And we had the Grappling Rewind. We'll see you on the mats. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.